The screams weren't supposed to be real. They were supposed to be the joyful shrieks of families enjoying a day at the amusement park, the kind of delighted terror that comes from plummeting down a roller coaster or spinning through a carnival ride. But on this particular day in May 1984, those screams carried a different tone entirely. They were filled with genuine panic, raw fear, and something much worse. What happened at the Haunted Castle Dark Ride in Jackson, New Jersey, would become one of the deadliest theme park disasters in American history. 8 teenagers would lose their lives in a tragedy that could have been prevented. Yet somehow, this catastrophe has been largely forgotten by the public, overshadowed by other disasters, and buried beneath decades of legal battles and corporate damage control. The Great Adventure Amusement Park was supposed to be a place where families created memories that would last a lifetime. Instead, it became the site of a nightmare that would haunt survivors, families, and an entire industry forever. This isn't just the story of what went wrong that day. It's the story of how a series of seemingly small decisions, cut corners, and ignored warnings created a perfect storm of disaster. Before we dive into the details of that horrific day, we need to understand what the Haunted Castle actually was. Picture a massive trailer, roughly the size of a tractor-trailer truck, designed to look like a spooky medieval fortress from the outside. The structure was meant to be temporary, a seasonal attraction that could be moved from park to park as needed. Inside, visitors would walk through a dark maze filled with actors in costumes, special effects, and jump scares designed to give them a thrilling fright. The Haunted Castle had been operating at Great Adventure since 1979, drawing thousands of visitors each season who wanted to test their courage against the unknown terrors lurking in its dark corridors. The attraction was particularly popular among teenagers who saw it as a rite of passage, a way to prove their bravery to friends and romantic interests. On busy days, lines would stretch for hours as eager visitors waited their turn to enter the mysterious castle. But beneath the surface of this popular attraction lay a web of safety violations and dangerous shortcuts that had been accumulating for years. The structure itself was essentially a glorified trailer covered in fake stone and castle decorations. The interior was a maze of plywood walls, foam padding, and cheap decorations, all designed to create an atmosphere of medieval horror. What it wasn't designed for was safety. The problems began with the very concept of the attraction. Unlike permanent buildings, temporary structures like the Haunted Castle often fell into regulatory gray areas. Building codes that applied to permanent structures didn't always cover these mobile attractions, and safety inspections were inconsistent at best. The result was a structure that looked impressive from the outside, but was essentially a fire trap waiting for a spark. Inside the castle, narrow corridors twisted and turned through multiple rooms, each designed to disorient visitors and heighten the sense of fear. The walls were covered in flammable materials, from cheap foam padding to plastic decorations. The lighting was deliberately dim, creating an atmosphere of mystery, but also making it difficult to see clearly. Most critically, there were no clearly marked emergency exits, no sprinkler system, and no adequate fire detection equipment. The staff operating the attraction were primarily seasonal workers, many of them teenagers themselves, hired more for their ability to scare visitors than for their knowledge of safety protocols. They were trained to jump out of hidden panels, chase visitors through dark corridors, and create an atmosphere of controlled terror. What they weren't trained for was how to handle a real emergency. On the morning of May 11th, 1984, everything seemed normal at Great Adventure. The park was preparing for another busy day of operation, with thousands of visitors expected to arrive for what should have been a day of harmless fun and excitement. The weather was perfect for a day at an amusement park, with clear skies and comfortable temperatures that would draw families from across New Jersey and neighboring states. The Haunted Castle was scheduled to open along with the rest of the park's attractions, ready to welcome another day of visitors seeking thrills and chills. The actors were getting into their costumes, the sound effects were being tested, and the maze was being prepared for another day of scaring unsuspecting guests. Nobody could have predicted that before the day was over, this temporary structure would become the site of one of the most devastating fires in amusement park history. Amusement park history. As the day progressed, visitors began streaming into Great Adventure, unaware of the deadly conditions brewing inside the haunted castle. The attraction was operating exactly as it had for the past 5 years, with no indication that this day would be any different from thousands of others. Groups of teenagers laughed nervously as they approached the imposing facade, daring each other to enter the mysterious castle that promised to test their courage. What made this particular day so tragic wasn't a single catastrophic failure, but rather the convergence of multiple dangerous conditions that had been building for years. The haunted castle was essentially a tinderbox, constructed from materials that would ignite and spread flames with terrifying speed. Polyurethane foam covered the walls, plastic decorations hung from every surface, and wooden partitions created a maze that would become a death trap when fire broke out. The electrical system inside the castle was a patchwork of temporary connections and exposed wiring, typical of seasonal attractions that were never intended to be permanent installations. Extension cords snaked through hidden passages, junction boxes were mounted on flammable walls, and the entire system lacked the safety features that would be required in any permanent building. Every day of operation was essentially a roll of the dice, hoping that nothing would go wrong. Around 6:30 in the evening, as the sun began to set and the castle's spooky atmosphere became even more effective in the gathering darkness, a group of 8 teenagers purchased their tickets and entered the attraction. They were typical visitors, friends out for an evening of fun, looking forward to the adrenaline rush that came from being scared in a controlled environment. Among them were Jose Carrion Jr., Christopher Harrison, Peter Berkemeyer, Tina Genovese, Lenny Ruiz, Samuel Valentin Jr., Eric Rodriguez, and Jose Carrion Sr. These young people had no way of knowing that they were walking into a structure that violated numerous safety codes, that the materials surrounding them were highly flammable, or that there were no adequate escape routes in case of emergency. They trusted that the attraction was safe, that someone had ensured their well-being, and that the only danger they would face was the manufactured scares designed to entertain them. The fire started somewhere deep in the maze, though the exact cause would become the subject of intense investigation and legal battles for years to come. Some witnesses reported seeing sparks from electrical equipment. Others suggested it might have been a cigarette or lighter used by one of the actors. What everyone agreed on was how quickly the flames spread once they began. Within seconds, the polyurethane foam that lined the walls began to burn, releasing toxic black smoke that filled the narrow corridors. The plastic decorations melted and dripped, creating additional fuel for the rapidly spreading fire. The wooden maze that had been designed to confuse and disorient visitors now became a deadly labyrinth with no clear path to safety. The actors inside the castle initially thought the smoke was part of a new special effect. In an attraction designed to create artificial scares, the line between real danger and manufactured thrills became fatally blurred. By the time everyone realized this wasn't part of the show, the fire had already gained too much momentum to control. Outside the castle, other visitors and park employees began to notice smoke billowing from the structure. The first calls for help went out, but the nearest fire department was miles away, and even when they arrived, their equipment wasn't designed to deal with the unique challenges posed by this type of structure. The castle's design made it nearly impossible for firefighters to reach the interior quickly, and by then, it was already too late for those trapped inside. Inside, the tragedy at Great Adventure's haunted castle stands as a stark reminder of how quickly entertainment can turn to horror when safety takes a back seat to profit. 8 young lives were lost that day, because a series of preventable failures aligned in the worst possible way. The flammable materials, the inadequate exits, the lack of sprinkler systems, the poorly trained staff, all of these weren't accidents. They were choices made by people who prioritized cost savings over human safety. What makes this disaster even more heartbreaking is how easily it could have been prevented. Basic fire safety measures that existed in 1984 could have saved every single one of those teenagers. But the haunted castle existed in a regulatory gray area where temporary attractions weren't held to the same standards as permanent buildings. That loophole cost 8 families their children. The fire led to sweeping changes in amusement park safety regulations across the country. Sprinkler systems became mandatory. Emergency exits had to be clearly marked and accessible, and flammable materials were banned from attraction interiors. The blood of those 8 teenagers became the foundation for safety standards that protect millions of visitors today. Yet despite the magnitude of this tragedy and its lasting impact on the industry, the Haunted Castle fire remains largely unknown to the general public. Perhaps that's because it forces us to confront an uncomfortable truth about the places we take our families for fun. Behind every thrill ride and haunted house are human decisions about safety. And sometimes, those decisions are wrong. The screams we heard that day in May 1984 should never be forgotten, because remembering them might just save lives in the future.